To bring in our reporter panel, investigative journalist for NOTUS, remember that's News of the U.S., Dave Levinthal, and Tia Mitchell, Washington bureau chief for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Tia, I'm so glad you're here because there was an earthquake a little bit in politics, not just in Georgia, but in Washington. Friday night, Marjorie Taylor Greene says she's not running for re-election. Not only that, she's going to retire in early January. Break it down for us.
Well, I think it comes down to when Marjorie Taylor Greene first came to Congress in 2020. She envisioned herself as someone who would be working alongside Donald Trump, pursuing his America First MAGA agenda. But remember, for the first 4 years, it was Marjorie Taylor Greene who was in office. Donald Trump was not in office. So it was, I think, easier in theory for her to fight alongside him when he was talking and not having to do. And now that Donald Trump is back in the White House serving a second term, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene became increasingly critical of some of the policies coming out of the White House, saw daylight between what she felt Republican voters had been promised by Trump and what he was actually giving them. And the more vocal she became, the more there was a split. And then the Epstein files really took it over the edge because, again, she said, I've been saying for years, we should release the Epstein files. I'm not going to change that. And Donald Trump, of course, didn't like that. And once he turned on her and began to criticize her, Marjorie Taylor Greene announced on Friday that she didn't really envision serving in Congress as an adversary to Donald Trump. That's not something she wants to do. And therefore, she decided to step away.
Very quickly, in Georgia, does she have a statewide future?
I think if she wanted one, I think all the polling, everyone agrees, she would be a very tough candidate for any Republican to beat in a primary. But she would be challenged in a general election. Now, whether that stops her from running, we don't know.
Right.
But that's probably the reality in Georgia.
Dave, your thoughts?
Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene certainly has a future. What that future is going to look like is up in the air. But my colleague Reese Gorman at NOTUS, he wrote a couple of weeks ago that she has considered the presidency. She denies that she's doing that, but at the same time, too, one has to wonder if she's going to seek the U.S. Senate, if she is going to run for president in 2028. And I mean, this is somebody who has basically drawn a line in the sand and say, hey, if you want to be MAGA, you can't be part of the tech oligarchy or supporting that. If you want to be MAGA, you can't embrace a military-industrial complex. And you certainly can't withhold the Epstein files after saying all along, Donald Trump, that you were going to do so up until the time you gained power in the White House.
I want to play for you both something that Alyssa Slotkin said about the economy, where it is now. Anthony Salvanto just captured the disconnect between White House messaging and the public at large. But Alyssa Slotkin took it back to the Biden years as well. Please listen.
I would argue that one of the things that he's been doing by repeating it and talking about it is trying to distract us from the big stories of last week, which were the Epstein files and then the economy. And I took note yesterday at 9 o'clock at night. He's tweeting that there's no inflation, the economy's the best it's ever been. It was kind of amazing considering that the American public isn't stupid. It actually reminded me of Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden tried to tell us for a year that the economy was great.
Joe Biden gaslighting America on economy. Alyssa Slotkin, call your office. Tia?
So I do think, again, if we go back to Marjorie Taylor Greene, over the summer and into the fall, and especially during the government shutdown, one of her main messages was Republicans are being tone deaf on where voters are.
They're missing something.
That they're missing something, that they're not responding to the fact that regular people of America are concerned about the rising cost of goods.
And
they're
frustrated.
Concerned about rising health care costs. And what Marjorie Taylor Greene has been saying is that the Republican Party doesn't have an answer. You can't just say things are going well. And that's where
there was evidence in the Georgia Public Service Commission election.
Absolutely. That was all
People
about
were ticked
costs.
off about utility costs.
Absolutely. And 2 Republican incumbents lost. We haven't had Democrats on the PSC in quite some time in Georgia.
Dave?
When you dig into the poll numbers that you cited, people in America have not thought that the economy is good really at any point during Donald Trump's first year of his second term. But the big difference is you look at one of those charts and it shows, you know, basically, who do you blame for it? And the numbers for Donald Trump, they started relatively high because that was the Joe Biden effect. They were still blaming the previous administration, but they have been just going down and down and down to the lowest point now today that they have been all year. And that's a big problem for Donald Trump because he is past the point of being able to blame Joe Biden for all the bad things that were happening. He's got to own it at some point. And the public right now is saying, well, Donald Trump, this is your time to own it.
And probably the beginning of that was in July when they passed the big, beautiful bill and President said, you're going to start seeing and feeling all the great effects of this legislation that only we and Republicans could put it through. We did it. We own it. Now, yes, indeed, Mr. President, you own it. Tia Mitchell, Dave Levinthal, always a pleasure. Great to have you with us.